warm-up is a really important concept and practice in the Amiko activities approach. The idea is that rather than just doing an icebreaker, which can be a bit of a tick box exercise, we're spending some time getting people really ready to share, to think, to explore, to be imaginative and to be creative. And the activities that we use, there's a few of them, there's a couple that we've outlined in this booklet, the mix and mingle and continue online, are deceptively simple. They're doing quite a lot of heavy lifting. So we're warming people up to themselves to take time to think, oh, how am I doing? What do I think? What do I feel? Something we don't often do. We're warming people up to each other, to making connections in the room and to building relationships and being part of a belonging to a group. We're warming people up to the topic. So all of the activities are purposeful. The questions or discussions, if we're having them, are going to be building our relationship with whatever it is we're there to explore together. We're warming people up to the space. And this is very important because a very natural human behaviour is territory building. So when people go into a room, you'll observe they usually will find a place to sit, often behind a table, and they'll sit down and they've got their coat and their bag and that's their spot. And then if you ask them to move, they'll be very reluctant because they've created a safe little kind of spot for themselves. But that means that being passive or being quite quiet is something they're warmed up to right from the beginning. So we want people to feel comfortable and at home in the whole space, in all of the room. And by doing an activity which gets people to move around and stand in different places, they are getting that sense of this room belongs to me and I can be anywhere in it. We're warming people up to their bodies, to being in their bodies, by moving, by expressing, by communicating. And we want people to be physically present because that can activate a part of the brain which can think a bit more creatively and imaginatively. And if we're physically in our bodies, we're much more likely to do that new thinking. If we're just stuck in this kind of, well, not stuck, but if we stay in this analytical part of our brain and get a bit too cognitive, we often find that we're just coming back to the same things that we've said before, tried and tested, and we don't get quite so much new open thinking. So to summarise, we'll warm up to 5 things. So to ourselves, to others, to the space, to the topic, and to our bodies, or to physical practice. Another consideration with warm-up is, if you're running a group, considering what is it that I am warmed up to before you start a session. So if you just come in and you're rushing and you've nearly missed your train, or you've had quite a sort of tough day so far, then just checking in and, so my warm-up's to be a bit urgent, maybe a little bit anxious, and take the time you need to settle. Or if you've just been really kind of like, a bit bored, is my warm-up to being quite slow? And you really want to consider what the aspects of yourself and how you are when you come into the space, because that is going to be signalling to other people, and you'll get a reciprocal or responsive behaviour. So your warm-up, their warm-up, as a group, what's happening for them at the moment, what might they be experiencing, and what is their situation. So what is it they're bringing into the space, and what are they warmed up to? And if there's, for example, a group that's having to face some change that they might be struggling with, then as being conscious of that and imagining yourself into their shoes, what might it be like to be them? What might they need? What might they be thinking and feeling? Taking the time to check. Sometimes if you're working with another person, we do an activity where we role reverse, or we kind of imagine we are a group member and speak from that point of view, just to bring out some of those potential thoughts or feelings or assumptions that we may not consider when we're coming in to run a session and we've got our own ideas and our own agenda. And then, sometimes in the room it can be a bit late. You're like, oh, of course, that's where they are. They need this first before they're ready for that. So these are all aspects of warm-up as a group facilitator, which are really useful to consider when you're working with groups, or when you're supporting somebody in a one-to-one situation. It's just as valid. What's their warm-up? What's your warm-up? And how can you use warm-up to help you both get to a place where you're on the same page and ready to work really well together?